how do you advise people on that to be able to be comfortable with investing today, even if they don't see the return, outside of the 7-day window, for example, for maybe the smaller businesses, but like if it's 30, 60, 90 days, like how do you talk to them about that? Because you're always
Yeah.
sort of taking that risk. You never really know if that email that you collect today is the one that's actually going to create the sale 30, 60, 90 days down the road.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm a big fan of a lot of experimentation, right? Trying a lot of different things. The one advantage of, the one great thing about Northbeam I've over the last, 4.5 years is just seeing brands go from, 5 million to 50 million or 15 million to 180 million in revenue. We've watched a lot of brands go through that journey of scale, in their scale process. And the common theme is lots of experimentation with different channels, right? Meaning trying influencer, trying YouTube, trying TikTok, trying new creative, trying new, really experimenting on a micro scale with a lot of different things, and then looking for a signal to see, okay, what's working, what isn't. And sometimes it's all of those things together is what finally turns where they turn the corner, right? So like you could just do YouTube and you're doing okay. There's a small blip, but then YouTube influencer, and now your YouTube paid is lifted by your YouTube influencer and vice versa. Now the two together are driving me, right? Versus one or the other on their own, right? Weren't cutting it. So you're looking for that media mix, right? It's not, everyone's looking for like that one thing. It's like, oh, if I just do this one thing, my business is going to take off.
Right.
That's rarely the case. Are there exceptions? Sure. But from what I've seen, of course there's exceptions with products that go viral. But like when you think about the long-term sustainable brands, they develop a mix and a playbook that lifts overall NDR or ROAS, right? And they're all working like a symphony is the idea. And that's learning it's almost like building your orchestra, right? What is my orchestra for my brand and my industry, right? And so figuring that out is kind of the key. And of course, if you're smaller, you want to investigate what the successful brands are, what is the orchestra? Do I need a violin? Do I need a cello? Do I need a flute in my particular industry? And then you start to experiment within those. But it's tricky, right? Because it'd be nice if it was just one thing. Okay, I'm just going to launch on this one channel and now I'm all set. I'm just going to spend. Can it happen? Yes. But generally speaking, for the long term, you need to develop a media mix that is going to work for you.
I think it's a great analogy. I have a visualization here of, the conductor in the orchestra, and then they have one violin. Like that's your first like Facebook campaign, and then you get more scale.
Yeah.
You add more budget. Now you have two violins. Now you do some lateral scaling. You add some more audiences. You get some different messaging. Now you've got 3 or 4 violins, but now you've got, what is that? Is when there's like 3 or 4 violins together and nothing else. Is that a concerto? I don't even know. I know nothing about classical music. But then it's like, all right, well, we've kind of reached a level of scale. And we see this all the time, Austin. It's like one trick pony, one channel. I can't get any bigger. That current agency that I'm working with says I can't work this any higher. We've basically maxed out this massive market. We see it all the time in health and beauty. We see it all the time in apparel. We see it all the time in the supplement space, for example. And then you start adding other channels, and they're always so they want to scale, but I always find it's the business owner that stands in the way. It's like, oh, well, if I don't get the return, I'm not going to spend.
Yeah.
And so I'm not going to go to those other channels, or I'm not going to start investing in a brand strategy and maybe a middle market or a middle of the funnel consideration kind of strategy that doesn't get me the return right now.
Yeah.
But otherwise, they're just going to be flat, or they'll penetrate the market with a single with a single message,
Yeah.
and everyone that's in market in the website conversion campaign has already seen their ad. And it's really, they have to figure out a way to scale to that next level. And I've always found that business owners, whether this is directors of marketing, owner operators, to take that next step is always the scariest, because you're like, this might not work, but you have to test
Right.
it. You're like, you have to test. You have to bring in the oboe guy, and then bring in the
Yeah.
cello guy, and bring in the little guy that has the little, I don't know,
Yeah.
cymbal thingy. You got to
Yeah.
test all these different areas and see like where you're getting lift. Is that a challenge? Like, how do you deal with that, with individual business owners? Because, to use your
Yeah.
stuff, like obviously that type of third party software is very helpful in being able to sort all this muddiness out. But a lot of times it's the business owner itself that's the resistant one.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sympathetic to the business owner. We're very sympathetic. And quite frankly, that's why we started Northbeam, right? Because, um, you know, our co-founder, Dan Wang, uh, did his honors thesis in AI at Stanford, and uh, very bright guy, and had experience in e-com and scaling on channels, including TV. And he worked at Twitter, now X, on their trending algorithm, and did some really exciting machine learning work there. But he also worked in direct to consumer, and he was trying to measure running ads on NFL football games and on Meta and on Google and different channels. So he knew, he saw the problem firsthand, just like I did. And as a business owner, it's kind of scary to listen to people that all are telling you you're making money and that everything is worth doing. So, as a business owner, it's like they're rightfully skeptical in our minds, because we were there. Dan and I had been there. It's like everyone's telling you to increase the budget. Everyone's telling you, oh, it's gonna work for you. And so again, that's why we started Northbeam. But at the same time, there's also truth in that, which it's how you do it, right? It's how much you invest per channel, how you measure that channel, how you measure your whole business. It's obviously hard, right? If it was easy, everyone would be, you know, scaling everywhere. And again, I'm not trying to do a plug for Northbeam. I'm just saying, like, regardless of how you figure it out as a business owner, somehow, some way, you have to develop a methodology when you hear all those people barking at you and saying, go with me, go with me. You have to have some way to measure that impact, to think about, is this going to help me? And again, it's tricky because oftentimes it's a bunch of things working together.
Right.
It's not one thing. That's why we developed Northbeam's machine learning based media mix modeling, is exactly for that. Now, we could still do it with our attribution software we launched with, in a way, but figuring out the right budget allocation amongst channels that's a whole nother can of worms. But again, very sympathetic to the business owner, to be clear, because it's hard, because you and I know, Ralph, there are people that are going to tell these business owners to spend more on things that don't make sense.
Yeah.
It's going to happen without a shade of a doubt, right?